Tell me, travelers, do you believe in the Dogman? Well, after tonight's stories, you just might. This is Jesse's story. He's a paramedic in Porter County, Indiana. What he saw on a call changed everything. My name is Jesse, and I'm a paramedic for Porter County EMS in northern Indiana. I've been doing this for 8 years now. Started when I was 22, right out of community college. The pay isn't great, about $19 an hour, but the benefits are decent, and I like the work. Most days, I work 24-hour shifts, which means I'm at the station from 7 a.m. one day until 7 a.m. the next. Sleep when we can, respond when called. My partner is a guy named Derek, who's been doing this for 15 years. He's got 2 kids, a wife, coaches Little League. Normal guy. We get along fine. Porter County is rural. We cover about 450 square miles with 3 ambulances and maybe 12 paramedics total on rotation. Most of our calls are cardiac events, farm accidents, car wrecks on US 30, occasional overdoses. We see a lot of elderly people, a lot of diabetics. We've pulled bodies out of silos and grain bins. I've pronounced people dead in their living rooms while their families watched. It's not glamorous, but it's real work, and it matters. The station is in Valparaiso, which is the biggest town in the county. From there, we can reach most places in 20 minutes. Some of the really remote areas take 30 or 40. We've got mutual aid agreements with neighboring counties for the really far-out stuff. During hunting season, we get more calls. People shooting themselves accidentally, tree stand falls, heart attacks from overexertion. Hunters are always doing stupid shit in the woods, and we're the ones who have to go get them. November 14th was a Saturday. Derek and I had been on shift since 7 a.m., and it had been a quiet day. One call for a woman with chest pain turned out to be anxiety, another for a kid who broke his arm playing basketball. We'd eaten dinner around 6 p.m., watched some TV at the station, and I was planning on getting some sleep around 10. At 9:47 p.m., we got toned out. Dispatch said we had a traumatic injury at a hunting cabin in the southern part of the county near the Kankakee River bottoms. Caller was reporting his friend had been attacked by an animal. The location was about 30 miles south, way out in the state forest area. Dispatch gave us the coordinates and said the caller would meet us at the turnoff from County Road 400. Derek drove. I pulled up the map on the computer, plotted our route. The area we were heading to was barely accessible, dirt trails that wound through state forest land. There were maybe a dozen hunting cabins scattered through that section, all on private leases. No cell service out there. The caller must have driven to somewhere with reception to make the call. Animal attack, Derek said. Probably a dog bite. Out here, more likely the guy shot himself and doesn't want to admit it. We've responded to a lot of hunting accidents where people claim it was something else. Pride is a hell of a thing. Nobody wants to admit they were careless with a firearm. The drive took 40 minutes. We found the turnoff, and there was a truck parked there with a guy standing next to it, waving us down. Derek stopped and I rolled down my window. The guy looked maybe 50, wearing hunting camo, face pale in our headlights. You the paramedics? Yeah, what have we got? My buddy Steve. Something attacked him. He's hurt bad. Real bad. You gotta follow me, the cabin's about 2 miles in. What kind of animal? I don't know, I didn't see it. Just heard Steve screaming. By the time I got there, it was gone. Derek and I exchanged a look. The guy seemed genuinely shaken. He got in his truck and we followed him down an even worse trail, branches scraping the sides of our ambulance. After 2 miles, we came to a clearing with a small cabin. There was another truck parked outside and a fire burning in a barrel. We grabbed our gear and followed the guy inside. The cabin was one room, basic setup. couple of bunks, a wood stove, table and chairs. A man was lying on one of the bunks, covered in blood. His friend was standing next to him holding a towel to the guy's shoulder. Steve was conscious but in shock. Mid-40s, heavy build, breathing fast and shallow. The towel his friend was holding was soaked through. I could smell the blood before I even got close. Derek started taking vitals while I did a quick assessment. Steve had deep lacerations on his left shoulder and upper arm. The wounds were ragged, tissue torn rather than cut clean. There was a chunk missing from his deltoid. His jacket was shredded. He also had scratches across his chest, 4 parallel lines that had torn through his shirt and the skin underneath. "Steve, can you hear me? I'm Jesse. I'm a paramedic. We're going to take care of you." He focused on me. His pupils were dilated, skin cold and clammy. Classic shock presentation. I don't know what it was. "It's okay. Just stay still." "What happened?" "I was outside, taking a piss. It came out of the trees, grabbed me. I fought it and it ran off, but..." Derek had the blood pressure cuff on. BP's 90/60, pulse 120. He's tachycardic. We needed to stop the bleeding and get him out of here. I pulled the towel away to look at the shoulder wound. It was deep. I could see muscle tissue. The edges of the wound were torn and there was debris in it. Dirt, what looked like fur or hair. "We need to pack this and go. Derek, start a line." While Derek worked on getting IV access, I packed the shoulder wound with gauze and wrapped it tight. The scratches on his chest were superficial by comparison, but they were still bleeding. I covered them with a trauma pad. The 2 friends were hovering, asking questions. I told them we were transporting to Porter Regional, about 45 minutes away. They could follow us. We got Steve on the stretcher and out to the ambulance. Derek drove while I stayed in back with the patient. Steve's blood pressure was dropping, 85/55. I had 2 bags of saline running wide open, trying to maintain his volume. He was fading in and out of consciousness. "Steve, stay with me. Tell me what attacked you." "Big, really big. Thought it was some wild animal at first, but it wasn't right. The face was horrifying, and the arms, they were too damn long. It grabbed me and I hit it with my flashlight and it let go. Made this sound like I can't describe it." His story didn't make sense, but people in shock say strange things. I was more concerned with keeping him stable. His pressure was still dropping despite the fluids. He was losing blood somewhere I couldn't see, maybe internal bleeding from the force of the attack. We were about 20 minutes from the hospital when Derek called back from the cab. "Jesse, we got a problem." "What?" "There's something on the road, something big." I looked through the front windshield. Our headlights illuminated the dirt road ahead, and there was something standing in the middle of it. At first I thought it was a person, but as we got closer, I realized that no man looked like that. It was hunched over, standing on 2 legs but bent forward. The arms were hanging down, almost touching the ground. "What the hell is that?" Derek said. "I don't know. Just go around it." Derek slowed down. The thing didn't move. We were maybe 30 yards away now, and I could see it was covered in dark fur. The head turned toward us, and I saw the face. Long snout, ears pointed up. I tried to rationalize the situation. Was this a guy in a fursuit? Some rabid dog? No, none of that made sense. Before I could say anything, Derek laid on the horn. The thing tilted its head like it was curious. Then it took a step toward us. "Fuck this," Derek said, and he swerved around it, going partially off the road to get past. The ambulance bounced hard over the rough ground. In the back, equipment rattled. I had to grab the rail to keep from falling. I looked out the back window as we passed. The thing was following us. Not running, just walking, but it was keeping pace. I could see it clearly in our taillights. The arms were massive, the shoulders broad. It was moving on 2 legs, loping and animal-like. "Derek, it's following us." "I see it." Derek accelerated. The ambulance wasn't built for speed, especially not on a dirt road. We were going maybe 40, and the thing was still keeping up, staying about 30 yards back. Steve was mumbling something. I turned back to him. His pressure was down to 80/50. I needed to focus on him, not whatever was outside. "Steve, stay with me. Stay awake." "That's it. That's what got me. You see it?" "I see it. Just focus on breathing." The thing followed us for maybe 2 minutes. Then it veered off into the trees and disappeared. Derek kept driving fast until we hit County Road 400. Then he slowed down to a safer speed. "What the fuck was that?" Derek said. "I don't know. Just get us to the hospital." We pulled into Porter Regional at 11:43 p.m. The ER team was waiting. We got Steve inside and gave report to the trauma doc. Deep lacerations to shoulder and arm, significant blood loss, BP dropping despite fluids, patient reporting animal attack. The doc looked at the wounds and called for a surgical consult. Derek and I went outside to clean the rig. Neither of us talked about what we'd seen. We restocked our supplies, filled out the paperwork, and cleared ourselves available for the next call. It was Derek who finally brought it up. "You saw that thing on the road?" "Yeah. What was it?" "I don't have a clue. It was following us, like it knew Steve was in the back." I didn't have an answer for that. We drove back to the station in silence. It was after 1 a.m. by the time we got there. The other crew was out on a call. Derek and I sat in the day room drinking coffee, not talking about it, but both thinking about it. Around 2:30 a.m., Derek's phone rang. It was his wife. He talked to her for a few minutes, then hung up looking worried. She said something's been outside the house, scratching at the windows, setting off the motion lights. Probably a raccoon. Yeah, probably. But he didn't sound convinced. He called the Valparaiso police and asked them to do a drive-by of his house, check on his family. They did. Reported everything looked fine. We tried to sleep, but neither of us could. Around 5 a.m. we got toned out for a cardiac arrest. Worked it for 40 minutes, called it in the field. The rest of the shift was a blur. When we cleared at 7 a.m., Derek went straight home. I went to my apartment and tried to sleep, but I kept seeing that thing on the road. The way it moved, the way it tilted its head when Derek honked the horn, the way it followed us. I called the hospital around noon to check on Steve. They told me he'd been in surgery for 5 hours. The shoulder wound had damaged major blood vessels. They'd had to do significant repair work. He was stable, but critical. The bacteria in his wounds were unusual. The lab was still trying to identify it. They'd put him on broad-spectrum antibiotics as a precaution. I didn't work for 3 days after that. When I came back, Derek and I didn't talk about the call. We responded to our normal stuff. Chest pains, falls, car accidents. Everything was routine. But I noticed Derek was different, quieter. He kept checking his phone, texting his wife. Steve died 6 days after the attack. Sepsis from the wound infection. The bacteria turned out to be something the infectious disease doc had never seen before. They sent samples to the CDC. I don't know if they ever figured out what it was. I went to Steve's funeral. His friends from the hunting cabin were there. I talked to the guy who'd called 911. He told me they'd been back to the cabin once to pack up their stuff, and they'd found tracks around the property. Big tracks, 4-toed, that circled the cabin multiple times. He said they'd sold the lease, weren't going back. Derek quit 2 weeks after Steve died. Told me he couldn't do it anymore, that the job was getting to him. He got hired on as a safety inspector at a factory. Day shift, no nights, no emergencies. I understood. I thought about quitting too, but I didn't. I'm still here, still running calls, still working 24-hour shifts, still driving those back roads at night. I requested to not be assigned to the southern part of the county, and dispatch has honored that so far. I've worked with 3 different partners since Derek left. None of them know about what happened that night. I think about it, though. Every time we get a call for a hunting accident or an animal attack in a remote area, I think about it. I think about that thing standing in the road, the way it followed our ambulance, the way it seemed to know Steve was inside. I think about Steve's wounds, the shape of them, the bacteria that killed him. The state police investigated the incident as an animal attack. Their report listed it as likely black bear. The DNR sent someone out to look for the animal, but they never found anything. Case closed. But I know what I saw. Derek knows what he saw. And Steve knew what attacked him, even if he wasn't alive to explain it in a way that made sense. I don't take the back roads anymore when I'm off shift. I drive the highways, stick to well-lit areas. When I'm working and we have to go into the remote areas, I'm more alert now. I watch the tree lines. I listen for sounds that don't fit. And I've started carrying a knife on my belt, even though I know that wouldn't help if I encountered what we saw that night. Derek texts me sometimes, just checking in. He never mentions the call directly, but I know he's thinking about it. He told me his wife wants to move, that she doesn't feel safe in their house anymore. I don't know if they'll actually do it. I'm writing this because I need to get it out. I can't talk about it at work. People would think I'm crazy. I can't talk to my family about it. But it happened. Steve died because of it. And whatever that thing was, it's still out there in those woods. Other paramedics in the county have mentioned strange calls over the years. Animals acting weird. Hunters reporting things they can't explain. But nobody talks about it seriously. It's always brushed off as misidentification or exaggeration. And maybe that's easier. Maybe it's better to not believe, to file it away as bear attack and move on. But I can't do that. I saw it. And I know that if we get another call like that one, I'll have to respond. That's the job. You go when you're called, no matter what. Even if it means going back into those woods. Even if it means encountering that thing again. I just hope I'm better prepared next time. I hope we all are. Because Steve wasn't the first person to be attacked out there, and I don't think he'll be the last. This is Carl's story. He's worked for the U.S. Forest Service for 23 years. He's had 3 encounters. My name is Carl, and I've worked for the U.S. Forest Service for 23 years as a recreation technician. I'm 47, married, 2 kids in college. I've had 3 encounters with something in these forests, and I'm writing this down because I think people should know. The first one was in Hiawatha National Forest, in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. 3rd year on the job, late September afternoon. I was working on the North Country Trail about 6 miles in from the parking area, clearing branches that had come down in a storm the week before. Had my Pulaski, my folding saw, work gloves covered in sap. It was around 4 p.m. Leaves were just starting to turn yellow and orange on the maples. Sun getting lower, but still plenty of light. I'd stopped for lunch earlier around noon by a creek, ate my sandwich sitting on a log. My back was sore from all the bending and cutting. Just routine work, same stuff I'd been doing for 3 years. I heard something moving in the woods, maybe 50 yards downslope to my right. Heavy steps, breaking sticks, not the irregular movement of a startled deer. Steady and deliberate. The footsteps moved parallel to where I was standing on the trail, then stopped. Everything went quiet. Even the birds stopped singing. After maybe 30 seconds, I saw movement through the trees, something dark passing between 2 trunks, walking upright on 2 legs. I should have left, but I was curious. I set down my Pulaski and moved off the trail toward where I'd seen it, stepping carefully, trying not to snap branches. got maybe 20 feet and crouched down behind some young hemlocks maybe 40 feet away from where it was. It was standing next to a big oak tree with its back mostly to me, digging at the base of the tree with its hands. And they were hands, not paws. 5 fingers, I could see them clearly. It was scraping at the dirt and roots, pulling things up and bringing them to its mouth, eating grubs or beetles or whatever it was finding in the soil. The fur was dark brown, kind of shaggy and uneven, thick across the shoulders and back. The arms were long. When it reached down to dig, its hands nearly touched the ground without much bending at the waist. It would dig for a few seconds, then straighten up slightly and look around, then go back to digging. I watched it for maybe 2 minutes. My right knee was starting to cramp from crouching. I shifted my weight slightly and a small stick snapped under my boot. Barely any sound, but the thing went completely still. Just froze in place, hands in the dirt. Then the ears swiveled back, pointed ears like a German shepherd but bigger. They rotated toward where I was hiding behind the hemlocks. It turned its head and looked right at me. The face was long, the snout extended like a wolf's, dark eyes. We made eye contact and my stomach dropped. There was awareness in those eyes, intelligence, recognition that I was there, that I was watching it. I stood up without meaning to, just an automatic reaction. Started backing toward the trail, keeping my eyes on it. It didn't move, just stood there watching me, its head tracking my movement. When I reached the trail, I turned and walked quickly back toward my truck. Not quite running, but close. I left my Pulaski, left my water bottle sitting on that rock, just grabbed my pack and went. The hike back took maybe an hour and a half. I kept looking over my shoulder, kept listening for footsteps behind me. Got to my truck and sat in the cab for probably 20 minutes, doors locked, just sitting there trying to process what I'd seen. Drove back to the ranger station, checked in my radio and GPS unit like normal. Tom, the other tech who worked my area, asked me how the day went. I told him fine, got most of the blowdowns cleared. He noticed I didn't have my Pulaski and gave me shit about it. Said I was getting forgetful. I told him I'd grab it next time I went out. Never did go back for it. Had to pay $60 out of my paycheck for the replacement. Went home. Had dinner with my wife, Sarah. She made spaghetti. We watched some TV. I didn't mention what I'd seen. Didn't sleep much that night, though. That encounter changed something for me. I couldn't rationalize it away or convince myself I'd been mistaken. Before that day, if someone had told me they'd seen something like that in the woods, I probably would have thought they were exaggerating or mistaken. But I'd seen it with my own eyes. It existed, and now I knew. After that, I started noticing things I'd probably dismissed before. I'd find tracks sometimes that didn't match anything in my field guides. Too big, wrong number of toes, stride length that didn't make sense. I'd come across trees with bark, stripped off 8 or 9 feet up, exposing the white wood underneath. No bear could reach that high. I'd find dead deer torn apart in ways that seemed excessive, violent. Rib cages cracked open, parts missing, like something had gone at them in a rage. And areas where the forest would go completely silent. That unnatural quiet where even the insects stopped making noise. I'd be working and suddenly realize I couldn't hear anything, and that feeling of being watched would creep over me. I started hearing stories from other Forest Service employees too. A tech named Rob, who'd worked in Hiawatha for 15 years. We were having beers one night at a bar in Munising, and he started telling me about destroyed campsites he'd found. Strange tracks. Things that didn't add up. He said he'd tried to mention it to his supervisor once, just casual conversation. Got shut down immediately. Told not to speculate about unknown wildlife, not to put anything unexplainable in reports. Rob said the supervisor had been pretty firm about it, like there was a policy. They don't want us talking about it, Rob said. I think they've known about it for years. Easier to just pretend it doesn't exist than deal with what it means if it does. I asked around after that. Carefully, only with people I trusted. Found out lots of people had experiences, not just in Hiawatha either. Guys who'd worked in Ottawa National Forest, in Chequamegon Nicolet in Wisconsin, up in Superior in Minnesota. Same types of incidents. Same shutdowns when anyone tried to report officially. My second encounter was in Superior National Forest in Minnesota. I'd transferred there in 2016. Summer of 2019, late July. I was working on a remote section of the Pow Wow Trail, deep in the Boundary Waters canoe area. The plan was to hike in on a Tuesday, camp overnight, work Wednesday and Thursday, hike out Thursday evening. The hike in took about 4.5 hours with my full pack. Got there around noon, set up my tent near Thunder Lake. Spent the afternoon cutting up blowdowns, hard work in the heat. By 6 p.m. I was exhausted, sweating through my shirt. Made dinner on my camp stove around 8:30. Freeze-dried beef stroganoff, not great but edible. Hung my food bag from a tree branch about 50 feet from my tent. Standard bear protocol. Was in my sleeping bag by 9:45, read on my Kindle for a bit, then went to sleep. Woke up at 2:17 a.m. to footsteps outside, moving slowly around my tent. The steps were measured, walking upright based on the sound pattern. Step, 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 pause. Not the irregular shuffle of a bear on all fours. I laid there completely frozen, barely breathing. My heart started going crazy, beating out of my chest. The footsteps circled my tent, taking maybe 30 seconds to complete the full circle. Then it came right up to the side of my tent where my head was. The footsteps stopped. Complete silence for probably 30 or 40 seconds. Then I heard breathing. Deep, slow breaths. Right outside the tent wall, maybe 2 feet from my face. Then sniffing. It was smelling the tent, smelling me through the nylon. Short sniffs at first, then longer ones. Moving along the tent wall, following the curve of it. I slowly reached out and grabbed my knife. Small folding blade, maybe 3 inches long. My hand was shaking. Not that it would do much good, but it made me feel slightly less helpless. The sniffing continued. It moved from the side wall to the front of the tent where the door was. Paused there by the zipper. I could hear it breathing, could almost feel the warmth through the fabric. There was this moment where I thought it was going to figure out how the zipper worked. But then the footsteps moved away, slowly, not hurrying. I heard it walk toward the tree line, heard branches breaking as it moved into the forest. The sound faded until I couldn't hear it anymore. I didn't move for probably 5 minutes, just laid there listening, knife in hand. Eventually I sat up, found my flashlight. The tent was intact. I unzipped the door a few inches and shined the light outside. Nothing there, just trees and darkness and the lake. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Around 5:30, the sky started getting lighter, and I began packing. Didn't make breakfast, just stuffed everything in my pack as fast as I could. Hiked the 9 miles back to my truck in just under 3.5 hours. My legs were burning, but I didn't slow down. Told my supervisor I'd had a bear encounter and didn't feel safe camping alone. She said that was the right call. Started carrying a gun after that. Glock 20 in 10mm. Now I don't go into the backcountry without it. My third encounter was 3 years ago in Chequamegon Nicolet, Wisconsin. I'd transferred there in 2020. Early morning in October, maybe 6:15 a.m. Sun was just coming up. I was driving down Forest Road 2178, heading to a trailhead. Came around a curve and there was one standing in the middle of the road about 50 yards ahead. I hit the brakes. This one was bigger than the first one I'd seen. Had to be 8 feet tall, maybe more. Standing upright, facing my truck. The fur was nearly black this time. We stared at each other for maybe 10 seconds. I pressed the horn and held it down. It tilted its head slightly, like it was curious about the sound. Then it just walked off the road into the trees. Casual. Like it didn't care that I was there. I sat there for probably 5 minutes before I could drive forward. After that, I started doing research, hours online reading through databases and forums. And there's a pattern. The areas with the most sightings line up with large wilderness areas, national forests with minimal human presence. Superior, Chequamegon, Nicolet, Ottawa, Hiawatha, Monongahela in West Virginia. These places all have them. I've found accounts from other Forest Service employees too, most posted anonymously, but the stories are consistent, and there's been an effort to suppress information about it. The message is always the same. Don't report unusual animal sightings. Don't create public concern. Last month I was working near Lauterman Lake, clearing blowdowns, mid-afternoon. I heard vocalizations from the woods, deep resonant sounds with patterns to them. Communication. Then I heard an answer from a different direction. They were calling back and forth to each other, and I was between them. I packed up and left. The calls continued as I walked out. They were tracking me. I've worked in 4 different national forests over 23 years. I've had 3 encounters and probably a dozen other incidents where I found evidence. And I know there are hundreds of other Forest Service employees with similar experiences. Last week, another tech named Brad found a destroyed campsite near Spectacle Lake. Picnic table snapped in half, tent shredded. The report said, vandalism. But I saw the photos. The claw marks on the table were at least an inch deep. We both knew what had done it. I'm getting transferred to Monongahela National Forest in West Virginia in March. I've already looked at reports from that area. Same patterns. So I'll probably see them there too. I've thought a lot about what these things are. Not just the name, but what they actually are. People call them Dogman. That surely does describe what they look like. So, I have been calling them that. From what I know, I have not seen any females. I didn't mention in the beginning, but the first and second encounter, I did see they were well endowed. I am assuming there are females as well. They have been here for thousands and thousands of years, probably before humans even walked this earth. But I think I understand why we're seeing them more now. We keep pushing further into their territory. More roads, more campgrounds, more trails every year. We're destroying their habitat, forcing them into smaller areas. They're being pushed out, and they have nowhere else to go. The encounters are increasing because we're leaving them no choice. I don't think there's malice in them. My 3 encounters, they avoided confrontation. The one outside my tent could have torn through the nylon easily. The one on the road could have been aggressive. But they weren't. They investigated and moved on. They just want to be left alone. We're the ones who keep encroaching on their territory. And as we continue pushing further into the wilderness, there are going to be more encounters, more incidents that get written off as bear attacks or vandalism. The Forest Service knows they're out there. They've known for years. But acknowledging it would mean restrictions on recreation, questions about safety. Easier to keep quiet and suppress reports. I can't change that. But I can write this down. These things are real. They're living in our national forests. They're intelligent and social and trying to avoid us. And we owe it to them and ourselves to acknowledge that instead of pretending they don't exist. That's what I believe based on 23 years in these forests and 3 encounters with something that's supposed to be impossible. I just want to thank all of you for sticking around until the end. It truly means the world to me. A huge thank you to the 2 brave listeners who sent in their stories to be heard. I know that isn't easy, and your courage doesn't go unnoticed. And of course, thank you to all of my Patreon members for your continued support. If you'd like to join, the link is in the video description. This is goodbye for now, travelers. Don't wander too far into the darkness, and if you do, just follow the firelight to find your way back to me.